Victor, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on the podcast today. How you doing?
Thanks, Adam. Glad to be here.
No, you're most welcome. It's great to have you on the show. And basically, I'm just going to kind of go over your title and a little bit about what you do, and you can kind of go more into it. So
Sure.
your name's Victor Sagalovsky, and you said you're originally from Ukraine, originally, and
Yeah,
you,
actually born in the Soviet Union. It doesn't exist anymore, but yeah, now it's Ukraine.
yeah, it's a bit changed quite a bit, hasn't it? And
We left in 1979, so I grew up here, but I grew up in two cultures honestly because when you're outside the home you speak English, when you're inside the home you speak Russian. So I had I'm a product of multiculturalism in that sense.
yeah, it's awesome. And that's an interesting, kind of life and experience, isn't it? To have that kind of duality of the two.
It's a very odd one to process, and only people that are like you understand. Because you're living in two cultures, or so really you have to be the children of immigrants, or in my case, the immigrant yourself in an immigrant family growing up in America. It's a definitely a unique experience to have one foot in each culture, and yeah, it's quite interesting.
Yeah, it's an interesting, upbringing and way of life, and I'll kind of go more into that in a bit.
Sure.
And so you're the co-founder and CEO of Lightwater Scientific, and when we last spoke, you mentioned it's basically, you have a company that is very much into the the science of water, really, and water, the good water and the effect of it on people, isn't it, really? So kind of can you go more into that? So like what your business is, and the importance of water, and what you do and how you got into it.
Right. So our company is called Lightwater Scientific, and we produce the most deuterium depleted water in the world. Deuterium is a contaminant also known as heavy hydrogen. And so we're one of the few companies in the world that can remove this. And this is a new standard of water purity that everybody is going to eventually attain. And we're kind of first out there because it's a very difficult process. It's not something you can do at home. It's not something that readily exists. The technology for it doesn't exist. Everybody has to spend millions of dollars and decades to figure it out on their own. So I was interested in water from a very young age. For some reason, it always stuck with me when when they say that you are mostly water, 75% water. That kind of stuck with me because then it's really important what water you drink if you're mostly water. And in fact, if you look at the biochemistry of it and look at water by molecular weight, we're incredibly a lot more water than we think. We're actually 98.9% water. We're almost 100% water. So 98.9% water by molecular weight. So everything in our body is using water. It's bound to water. It's using water. It's reducing water. It's oxidizing water. So it's a very unique thing. So when you look at the water in our body, it's different than the water that we drink. So my interest was in researching and understanding more about this, what's known as metabolic water. And metabolic water is deuterium depleted water. So essentially what we make is water that's the closest to the water that's inside your own cells. And water is, we could talk about all the many things that it does, but fundamentally, it's what keeps you alive, other than the oxygen you breathe. So to me, I'm very interested in these upstream solutions, as I call them, these foundational interventions that can slow down the aging process and increase our vitality and optimize our health, and in an easy way where it's foundational, where you start right from the beginning. You don't have to, anything like they say, a foundation built on sand will not stand. So you have to build a strong foundation when it comes to your health, and water and metabolic water is a big part of that.
No, that's awesome. And just a question that comes into my mind is, the water that we all drink, from our taps. So I'm based in the United Kingdom. So, a lot of our water is, kind of treated with different chemicals and different things to kind of get rid of bacteria and this kind of thing. And I know it's like that in America as well, and many other like Western countries.
Most places, yeah.
In most places, I'm not entirely sure what is in it. I mean, I've heard that they put sulfur in it. I've heard that they put
Well,
chlorine or
yeah,
chlorine.
the water in your body doesn't like to have anything in it, right? It's just it's pure. It's like a crystal. Crystal's purity is based on how free of contaminants it is. So tap water is a whole other animal. You know, it's what we do is, so basic filtration, which is distillation or reverse osmosis, which everybody should have in their homes, especially if they're living in a city, or even if they're on a well. If they have too many, if it's too mineralized, that's not good either. But let's say basic filtration strips everything out of the water that's not water. That may be a contaminant, may not be a contaminant, but it takes everything out that's not water. What we do is an extra step, because what we remove is not, what we remove is a type of water. We all know water is H2O. And if you look at 20,000, if you look at 20,000 drops of water, which is 1 liter, you'll see that out of those 20,000 drops that make up 1 liter, 6 of those drops are not H2O. They're a different type of water, and they're HDO or HOD. And the deuterium replaces that hydrogen, and it's a heavy hydrogen, so it makes it doubles the mass of the isotope in the atom configuration, but it also messes up the structure of the water molecule. It changes it so fundamentally that it is incompatible with our biology. So this is, like I said, it's not an easy process to remove deuterium from water. Why? Because it's a type of water. So you're removing water from water. So first of all, we start by removing all the contaminants or all minerals or anything that's in the water, and then we take that extra step, which makes it closer to the water that we drink. Now, we need to replenish water 1 to 2 liters a day, more or less, and but 25 to 30% of the water in our body is recycled constantly. And in fact, if you study the work of Dr. Boros, who coined the term deuteronomics, which is the study of how deuterium is managed by the body, you'll find that if you look at the biochemistry, that we recycle 1,500 gallons of water per day. But because we lose a lot of water, we need to replace it. So if we replace that water with water that's more compatible with our biology, then sure enough, that would have some positive impact on our health. Now, most tap water in the world has a deuterium level of 150 parts per million. And the goal here is to get down by 20%, because that's what the last 60 plus years of studies show is the ideal deuterium level in the body, or hydrogen to deuterium ratio in the body. And you can go lower, but I think that's what our biology is most compatible with. And in fact, if you look at the metabolic water in our cells and our mitochondria, it's actually even much more depleted in deuterium. It's 60 to 70% depleted in deuterium. So the body has its own filtration mechanism that's trying to keep this out of our energy producing pathways, but it gets overcome pretty quickly as we grow and age.
So with like the water, so I mean, this is all new to me, so it's really interesting, going into
Well,
this.
yeah, it's
Um,
new to most people actually.
so I'm in the UK, and where I currently live, I notice a difference because I'm down south in the map of the UK, for an example.
Okay.
When I used to live further up country in the UK, the water is very different. It's like harder, and we had like kettles, and my mum had to always lime scale the kettle because the water was
Yeah,
different. Like
it's high
that.
in calcium, it's high in
So
sulfur, it's higher in iron. Yeah.
so is that the difference in it? Is it because like where I live now, the water's softer, and I think people pay more probably for the water bills down here because it's treated differently, and it's different.
That's just the amount of total dissolved solids in the water. And
Mm.
if you're drinking just regular water, for the best water for humans is water that has low dissolved solids. So, we're looking at like 15 parts per million to to 100 parts per million of dissolved solids. Dissolved solids are minerals and elements and whatnot. And so, yeah, humans absolutely should not be contaminated with minerals that that are not assimilable, not bioavailable. So a water that, if you want a water that's crisp, that's fresh, is water that has low dissolved solids. And those dissolved solids, those minerals, actually give the water its taste. And this is why all water, or all spring water, if you compare it, it has a slightly different taste if you have a subtle enough palate. And there's water competitions around the planet that endeavor to vote on what the best tasting water in the world is, and that taste is based on the mineralization of that water. And the harder the water is, the more minerals it has, and it loses that crispness that your body wants. Your body wants its minerals from food. Now, even though some people say you got to get your minerals from water, I don't subscribe to that. But it's nice when a water is kind of like perfectly mineralized, low total dissolved solids, for taste, right? And then certainly bicarbonate elements, or sorry, minerals like magnesium bicarbonate, potassium bicarbonate. If water has those in those minerals in a bicarbonate form, then it's beneficial for you. Otherwise, it's not an organic mineral. So yeah, it's a great subject because so few people know anything about it.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I'm just like reading some information in the the email of when we got connected, and it says that water within the water there's an occurring substance that impacts the aging process and chronic illness, longevity, and cancer patients. The substance is called deuterium. I
And
think what
that's
you mentioned.
deuterium. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's deuterium. Yeah.
So how can the water like kind of affect the aging process? And what water depends on that, like.
So if you look at, I don't know how much you or the listeners here know about mitochondria, or how energy is produced in the body. So maybe I'll just start at the basics. Our energy is produced. One of the main places energy is produced in our body is the mitochondria. That's an established fact, even though there is some controversy around that one as well. So inside the mitochondria, how does it make energy? Well, it makes energy different ways, but primarily the bulk of the energy is made with these motors in the electron transport chain. And these are called ATP synthase nanomotors. They're quite phenomenal because they look like a motor generator, like we would make. So they take hydrogen protons, which cause the motor to spin, and then on the other side of the membrane that motor is in, it produces ATP. So it generates ATP from the spinning of that motor, causes a kinetic effect with we don't need to get into the actual fine details, but the point is that we have these motors. We have these trillions of these motors in our mitochondria. And these motors, even though you can't see them in a microscope, or maybe now you can, very difficult, but when you analyze it, it's exactly a motor. So these motors make the bulk of the energy, or the bulk of the ATP energy in our bodies. Now, because these motors run on hydrogen, when something gets in the motor that is like hydrogen but isn't hydrogen, which is deuterium. See, deuterium is a type of hydrogen. It's known as an isotope. Hydrogen is the simplest, most abundant element in the universe, and it's the first element on the periodic table. And it is so useful for life and for stars and for the universe because it's so simple. It's the only element that doesn't have a neutron. It's just a proton in the center and an electron cloud around it, right? So it's the smallest thing in nature. So in 1933, it was discovered that not all hydrogen is a proton and an electron, that there are some hydrogen known as hydrogen 2 or deuterium that actually has a neutron as well. And this neutron doubles the mass of that hydrogen. So when this version of hydrogen, hydrogen 2, gets into that motor, it causes it to stutter, shake, and break down over time. And in that moment that it's in that motor, not only does it cause it to stutter, but no ATP energy is produced. And this, based on the amount of deuterium that we have on our planet, on average, that most people are consumed. The oceans are 155.76 ppm, and then it goes all the way down to 89 ppm in Antarctica. And most people are drinking water that's between 145 and 150 parts per million. Okay, so that means that every 5.5 seconds, these motors that we have trillions of that are making the energy in our body, instead of getting the hydrogen that they want, they're getting this deuterium, which is hydrogen, but twice the weight. So it doesn't quite mechanically fit. It's a mechanical problem. That's one problem. Second problem is the kinetics. If you look at a bond between carbon, which our bodies are made primarily of, carbon and water, we're carbon-based life forms. So when you look at, carbon is bound to hydrogen in most everything, right? So when carbon is bound to deuterium, they dissociate 9 times slower. So what does that do? That slows down the kinetics of any reaction, of enzymatic reaction, of DNA replication. And this causes a lot of errors. And this is cumulative over time. And so this is why, we don't look the same when we're 50 compared to when we're 20. Okay. Although I think I'm doing all right. So, yeah.
So when you say the water is like the carbon and based on the water, depending on the water depends, like it creates like chemical reactions in our body basically, which then
deuterium, just imagine deuterium slows everything down. Imagine you woke up tomorrow and all of a sudden you weighed twice the weight you do now, or you had just a back, let's say you weigh 75 kilos. Well, now you wake up tomorrow and you got a backpack on your back that you can't take off, and it's also weighs 75 kilos. So now you got to live your life with twice the mass. And you got to figure out how to carry it around. And so this is what's happening in our bodies. This deuterium, anytime the hydrogen that our body requires is taken up by a deuterium, you have problems. And so we have about 2 to 4 grams of this stuff in our bodies. It's not very much, right? But yet, when you look at its dispersion in how it's dispersed in the body, you see that it's actually 4 times more prevalent than the basic constituents of life: glucose, minerals, magnesium, potassium, calcium. It's got 4 to 8 times more, depending what you're comparing against. So there's deuterium, even though there's very little of it in our bodies by weight, it really has a big impact on our biology. And what it does is it slows us down. It slows down every reaction in the body. So, and it's heavy. That's why our company is called Light Water, because when you remove this heavy hydrogen from water, you can actually weigh the water. If you take a liter of water that is normal and you take a liter of water that's our water, which is deuterium depleted, and we make a water that's 10 parts per million and also 5 parts per million, you can put them on the scale, okay, and see that there is, I think, a 200 milligram difference. So don't quote me on that though. There is a difference in weight. So what we're doing is we're just removing this heavier hydrogen because it's incompatible with our biology. And this is the big revelation. To me, this is like one of the greatest discoveries in biology because it has a direct effect on us. The fact that we found something, I'm standing on the shoulders of giants here, but we found something that is actually directly affecting our aging process. And the reason it does that, as I like to say, is because oxygen is stupid, because it can't distinguish between pairing with a regular hydrogen, known as protium, a single proton and electron, or deuterium, which is proton, neutron, electron. So oxygen just goes along, and it thinks it's binding with a regular hydrogen when it's binding with its rare isotope, known as deuterium. So some of this water becomes water that's semi-heavy water or heavy water. There's D2O, there's HOD, and there's H2O. We run on H2O. And when you give somebody pure deuterium, pure water, deuterated water, pure D2O, which doesn't occur in nature, but you can make it in a lab. This is what they use for all kinds of nuclear reactions and atomic energy generation. But when you use heavy water, they use it for a new class of drug, all kinds of things. But if you would give to somebody heavy water, which looks like water, tastes like water, I mean, it's it looks like there's no way to distinguish it unless you do the isotopic analysis or put it on a scale compared to regular water. But when you give somebody heavy water for 5 days, they'll die between the third and fifth day, and it looks like water. So this is a problem because our biology is not compatible with this deuterium, and no biology is. It's a slowing down process, and it directly mechanically damages our mitochondria. So we have a mechanical problem, and it's like putting the wrong gasoline in your tank. It's like having a petrol vehicle and putting in diesel. It's not going to get very far. And yet, so for us, it's a slow diminishment of our capacity over time, ultimately leading to age and death.
So when you said heavy water within 4 to 5 days and that could kill somebody, like what would be heavy water, and where would you get that? Like,
heavy water is the molecule D2O. Regular water is H2O. So heavy water is D2O, and you would get it from a lab. You couldn't find it in nature. Only 1 out of every 41 million molecules of regular water have this D2O. However, 1 out of every 6,420 molecules of water are this HDO or HOD. And so this is the problem that we've gone after, because even though you could synthesize heavy water in a lab, it's not something that will hurt you. But its configuration of HOD will, because it's roughly every 6,000 molecules. So, but the heavy water is made in a lab, and it's expensive. It's like $1,000 a liter, and I think it's highly regulated as well. But it'll kill you because it doesn't fit. It doesn't fit metabolically. It'll basically suffocate your anaerobic metabolism.
I think, like it's really interesting, like, hearing all of this like the first time, because I think it's really important.
Yeah, it's new information. It's overwhelming information to most. The consequences of this information are quite severe. It's got a lot. It's got a lot of punch.
Yeah, and I think like also a lot of people. I think there's a lot of marketing. I think there's a lot of companies that sell water. Like, I mean, there's thousands, but I mean in the UK we've got like Volvic, Britvic, these different brand names, and you have like supermarkets that are selling their water as well. And a lot of the time, I think we don't necessarily know or understand. For the person who's, I mean, you're going to know what's in the water more than other people, but for the average person, they think it's healthy and they think it's okay.
Well,
like,
they should educate themselves. 15 minutes of education will do nothing but benefit them for their entire lives.
So is bottled water okay? Like from that we buy in the supermarket, like over time, is that okay? Does that contain this deuterium, or is that taken out?
All water on the planet is going to have, on average, 150 parts per million. And what it was discovered, and the reason how this work started was, they were in the late 50s in Siberia. There was two chaps. There was a young biophysicist and a young gerontologist, and they were trying to make a name for themselves. And their professor suggested that graduate students, and their professor suggested that they try to solve a problem that they had no answer for, and that problem was or an interesting anomaly. There was 2 populations that they looked at in Siberia, and these people had 7 to 10 times more centenarians, people that live over 100 years of age, than anywhere else in the Soviet republics or Europe, for that matter. And they wanted to understand why, because these people were living in like Eskimo conditions. They're practically Eskimos, right? Indigenous type peoples. So they wanted to understand why these people lived so long. And eventually they discovered, they looked at diet, they looked at lifestyle, they looked at genetics, they looked at everything. And then they looked at the water. And they discovered that the water that they're drinking, their glacial water, was and that in one particular case was 16% to 20% lower in deuterium than the water that everybody else drinks. So they said, maybe this is something. Okay. So they started doing tests with animals and plants. And sure enough, when you reduce the deuterium in the water, things grow better, faster, live longer, and etc. Right. So this was a huge discovery. And then it wasn't until 60 years later that it was 2007 that it was discovered why this mechanical problem of why deuterium is so terrible for us. But then again, and although if you go all the way back to the early 50s, the Americans looked at heavy water and they saw that if you give it to an animal, it'll die within a few days. They said this deuterium is incompatible with life. And so a little bit of this deuterium is in everything. It's in water, it's in food, it's on our planet, and it's been rising. So what we do is just reduce it. We sell a water that reduces it. So we're unlike any other supplement, because every other supplement is saying, here, take this, add this to your body, and it'll have an effect. Well, what our water is doing is just reducing deuterium in your body. So if you drink this, that water that has less deuterium in it, then as you replace the water in your body, you'll have less deuterium total. So the goal here is just to lower your body to those levels that they discovered in the 50s, that if you reduce your deuterium by 20%, you're gonna have more energy. You're gonna have more cellular energy, and you're gonna have a net energy benefit unlike anything that there is. Now, water on the planet, like I said, is on average 150 parts per million, but in certain places in mountainous areas, very extreme north and southern latitudes, because of the way the hydrological cycle operates on this planet, you have some places that are anomalies in a sense that have less deuterium. And then when you go there, you see that people that drink this water that's 15 to 20% lower in deuterium where they live, and then not to mention all the food that they're eating is also grown in this environment, you'll notice that they enjoy better health than people that are living somewhere like coastal, where they're drinking water that's 150 parts per million, because that little delta over time, over a lifetime, over decades, is going to be an enormous benefit of energy. It's a conservation of energy, right? You're conserving what you would have lost otherwise, because you're minimizing the damage that this deuterium does every 5 seconds.
So also, would you recommend like water filters? Because sometimes people will have like a water filter in the house. They'll put the tap water and then they'll have the water filter. Does the water filter take any of that out? Are they useful?
Yes. So, like I said, there's no standard filtration. There's no home water filter or any available commercial filtration that will remove or reduce deuterium or the semi-heavy or heavy water. But reverse osmosis or distillation is incredibly valuable. Like I said, and now the thing that you want to watch out for is if you install a reverse osmosis system in your house, whether it's an undersink system or a countertop system, is that you look for one that doesn't have a tank. It's tankless, because that tank is a breeding ground for bacteria. And if it's not cleaned regularly, and I mean like every week or at least, depending on the water that you have coming in, it will grow a bunch of bacteria, and you'll be drinking this and you won't even realize it until you don't feel well. So especially detrimental to young children. So absolutely, everybody has to take this very seriously. They should know what water they're drinking. And even if you don't drink deuterium depleted water, there's still things you can do in your diet and lifestyle to reduce deuterium in your body. But when it comes to water, at least start with something that reverse osmosis, that maybe you've remineralized. If you want to change the taste of the water, you can remineralize it with different mineral complexes. We like the ketone marine plasma. It's a 120-year-old, basically a very structured salt water, organic salt water. So you can add that mineralization to your water. But sure enough, yes, you should either distill your water or reverse osmose it. Most carbon filtration is not adequate. Again, it depends where you live, right? Some places you may, like where I live here in Lake Tahoe area up in the mountains, I can drink the water out of my tap. It's actually very clean. And in certain places, it's so clean that they don't even require that it be chlorinated or fluoride or fluoride added, which are incredibly detrimental to us. So even if you live in anywhere where you have municipal water, they're going to put fluoride in it. Most likely, they'll definitely put chlorine in it. There'll probably still be a homeopathic signature of whatever. If it's recycled water, I know in the UK that you know, there's all kinds of drugs in the water, right? So or traces of this. Water has memory. So unless it's like a hard drive, unless you actually erase it, everything that you expose that water to, that vibration will still be inherently in the water. So water is it's such a fascinating subject because there's no end to knowledge about it, and it's such a simple molecule, but so profound because of the different states that it takes, and it's just so. But for people's health, if they don't drink deuterium-free water, at least reverse osmosis, tankless, or distillation, or no. Everybody gets your whatever water you drink and wherever you live in the UK or the US or any Western country, the data of what the mineral profile of that water is publicly available, and everybody should have that, so they know exactly what they're putting in their body day-to-day basis, and then they can make the decision. You know what? I want to take this stuff out, so I'm going to get myself a reverse osmosis filtration unit or distillation, and sometimes carbon is adequate if the water is pretty clean to start.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think it's really good that, people do their research and have a look at, what water they're drinking, for their taps. Because I got one of those Parrsitivity water filters. I don't know if would you recommend those?
Yeah, I'd recommend them for about 2 days.
2 days.
Yeah, because they're gonna get, again, it's a bacteria problem.
Because
you're gonna get bacterial growth in those Brita filters. So
because I had one of those, and I could definitely taste the difference from drinking the tap water as compared to drinking it for the filter.
Yeah, it removed some of the heavier contaminants, some of the heavier particulates. So it's not gonna remove everything. That we like. There's a problem with the water that people drink now, is that, like I said, you have the vestigial signatures of drugs and pharmaceuticals, and this has a subtle effect on our own consciousness. So clean water, first and foremost, clean water, and when I say clean, not only free of the contaminants that'll hurt you, but also the contaminants that will hurt you slowly over time. And this is why filtration is important.
And also, like you mentioned, like chlorine and fluoride, are there like health problems associated with that in water? Like are they harmful, chlorine and fluoride, long term in water?
I think so. There's enough studies and evidence to support that it's very harmful. Chlorine is, it's not terribly harmful, but again, over time, the overconsumption of chlorine can really disrupt the homeostasis of your intestinal flora, of your microbiome. You don't want to mess with your microbiome. It's like chlorine's like giving it an antibiotic. So constant use of chlorine is not good. Fluoride is even more damaging, in my opinion, and concerted consensus of many. Fluoride has an effect on the brain, among other things. So it's not supposed to be put in the water. It's not naturally fluoride per se. It's sodium fluoride, which is a contaminant, which is it's going to hurt you. Yeah. In fact, here's a little story. My friend had a water distiller, okay, and he was cleaning it, and he opened it up like he normally does, cleans it, and usually he cleans it with gloves or a towel. And this time he didn't have any around, so he stuck his hand in there and there's like a little film that formed, and he started just just scraping this off with his hand. Next thing you know, his hand like swelled up, got red, and he all panicked. I don't know if he went to the emergency room. I think actually he did. He panicked, and it turns out it's that concentrated fluoride on the wall of that tank it was cleaning. It really hurt him. So we're not supposed to add these things to our water. Fluoride was originally added on the auspices and promise of the benefit of dental benefit, that it would lessen the amount of cavities in the body. But I think there's more nefarious reasons. And even if there wasn't, this isn't the government's, this isn't the auspices of the government to put stuff in your water to affect your health. Okay, it's your personal choice and your personal decision. You shouldn't. No one should dictate to you what you should put in your body. And this is the problem that we're living in today. There's a lot of things that people put in their bodies right now, whether they eat it, or they breathe it, whether they get it transdermally, that they never gave anybody permission to put in their bodies. Right? It's just a passive thing that happens, and people get ill, and because they don't have a choice. Nobody, if you're driving down a country road and you inhale a bunch of glyphosate, you didn't give anybody permission to dope you with glyphosate and destroy your health. But sure enough, that's just we live in an environmentally toxic world in certain places, not everywhere, but we have to be conscious of this. And so this is what we have to deal with in order to maintain and achieve optimal health. We have to deal with natural and man-made contaminants that are ubiquitous in nature now. So when a child is born, their blood already has jet fuel in it and a bunch of other and I think there was like 90 other carcinogens. From where did a child get this? Because it's in the environment. So we're constantly under stress, under attack by these contaminants. So what we have to do is increase our ability to defend ourselves. If the body is an incredible self-healing organism, and with a proper functioning immune system and a strong biofield, strong aura, if you will, we can stay ahead of this pollution. Like we can never, even though we may be exposed to it, we never get any symptoms, and we never catch any disease from this. But if we are not strong in our biology, in our organism, then we're susceptible to all kinds of things that will just hurt us. So this is one way, when this is so the conversation is, one, about energy, and two, about how to strengthen yourself to the point where you can resist getting sick, resist getting ill, and then beyond that, just be in perfect health. Wake up refreshed, sleep well, have a great metabolism, live a long, happy life. Don't have any diminishment of physical ability your entire life. This is what's normal for humans. Humans, if you recall, our ancestors used to work in the fields, sometimes all day under the sun, even into their 90s or hundreds. Okay. And this is not something that is, we've lost something in our fortitude as a collective, as a species. So we want to do whatever we can, whatever biohack is available to us that's beneficial, that doesn't have any side effects, that we can implement. We need this more than ever. And this is why I got so excited about this when I discovered it in 2004, was that the science, I couldn't get it out of my head. It didn't matter to me that it got overlooked by others. It didn't escape me. I saw that in this world where energy is everything, that if you have a way to increase your energy or conserve your energy, you better pay attention to that.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's really important, and to look after ourselves and make, our own choices on, what's right for us. Because I think, like you said, water is something that we all need. We're all part of water, to kind of function, stay alive. But, to do our own research and look into this, because I think, like you said, certain things are being put in place by governments, and, it's just kind of, like you said, a lot of it's in place, and I know they monitor water and they do checks all the time and that kind of thing. But I think I saw an article recently, and it was like based on the water in the UK, and they were saying that it's too kind of too healthy, if that makes sense. We'll say healthy, but it's got not too healthy,
It's
but that's probably the wrong word. But basically, it's clean, but it's kind of doesn't need as much stuff being put in it as it probably is. Like it's okay. They could lower it down a bit.
again, every city and municipality is going to be different. Not
Hmm.
all water in England, not all water in the UK or Europe or America is the same. You're going to have you can have a well here, and then you go down a block, and the water profile will be completely different.
Oh, right.
So not all your water is going to the
Very.
mineralization of that water is going to be completely different where you go, whatever dissolved solids are in there, dissolved gases. I mean, you can't say that all the water. There's not going to be two types of water. All water profile wise is going to be vastly different. So it just really depends where you live in the UK and
Hmm.
where your water source is. And everybody should know where their water is coming from. Is it coming from a river? Is it coming from a spring? Is it coming from desalination? Is it recycled from your toilet? Where is your water coming from, man? You know,
Yeah, definitely. It does. It doesn't make me think sometimes. I do think like where it comes from, and I think people need to do more research into that. And
it's public.
on
It's publicly available information. Instead of devoting all your time to things that aren't going to affect your health, entertainment,
mm,
spend 15, 20 minutes researching the things that are going to ensure that you don't have to have a relationship with the pharmaceutical industry.
yeah, yeah, definitely. No, it's really important. But you mentioned that you discovered this in 2004. Many people overlooked it. Like, why do you think they overlooked it? And how did you deal with that?
It's overlooked because, like I said, when you take a liter of water, 20,000 drops, 19,994 are water and 6 drops are HDO. They figured out, what's the big deal? There's not that much of this stuff in their water. It's not, and yeah, it's true. It doesn't, that's why they overlooked it. They failed to take into consideration that even such a small amount cumulatively has such a negative impact. So, but they didn't always overlook it. Like I said, in the when they first discovered that hydrogen wasn't just one type of hydrogen, that it actually had there's there's three versions of hydrogen, and we're focused on this one, deuterium. When they discovered it, like I said, they said, okay, well, how is this different? And sure enough, they discovered that it is incompatible with human life, which is quite paradoxical, because hydrogen is the basis of all life. If you didn't have hydrogen, is what everything runs on, like a rocket ship, stars, bodies, every living thing in the universe, in a known universe, runs on hydrogen. It's made of hydrogen. Hydrogen is still 75% of the universe. So it was like mind blowing that in 1933 they discovered that not all hydrogen is hydrogen. So this is the problem, and it's just a heavy thing. It's just, if somebody says here, what backpack do you want to carry on this 12-mile hike? Do you want to carry the 10-kilogram backpack or the 20-kilogram backpack? You can say, I want to carry the smaller one, right? It's less work. Everything in nature wants to take the path of least resistance. So deuterium creates resistance. So they overlooked it. The other reason they overlooked it, and again, like I said, the Americans and the Russians concluded it's incompatible with biology, with life 60 plus years ago. But another reason it was overlooked is because nobody knew how to reduce deuterium from water. Nobody had the technology. It took decades to develop this technology to remove this type of water from this type of water, right? How do you separate water from water? It's very difficult, and it takes a lot of energy. and it takes a lot of know-how, and it takes a lot of money to build the infrastructure to begin with. So it just wasn't available. So they put it on the shelf. They put it on the shelf over many decades, and every decade they revisit it. Scientific community would revisit it and say, is deuterium still bad? Yeah, it is. Moving on. There's a big disconnect between science, medicine, and people like me that are just, I would say really futurists or pioneers, and we're ahead in terms of adoption of technology that others that there's a, in the scientific community, they move very slow because they don't want to make waves, right? It's very, when you make a discovery, you have to defend it, and unless you're completely 100% certain, you can lose a lot of credibility very fast. And but again, this deuterium problem, it cannot be refuted, it cannot be challenged because it's a mechanical problem. And that didn't come out until 2007. That paper wasn't written until 15 years ago. So everything moves very slowly, and we didn't start making this water available in the United States until 2019, and it took a decade before that to get to the point where you can even offer a commercial product, even though it's expensive. 10 years before that, if it was available, which it wasn't, but a little bit of it was, you'd be paying, instead of $20 a liter for deuterium depleted water, you'd be paying $1,000. So it's just never, it takes people like myself that are bridging science and commerce, because it's where everything happens. Adoption happens in adoption of a new product or a new protocol or a new intervention happens among the people. It doesn't happen in a laboratory. So it takes that type of person to advance a field. And now if the feedback is positive, if the people use this and get results, then certainly it helps support the science behind it, and more people become interested in becoming experts of the science. And sure enough, there's a new branch of biochemistry known as deuteronomics, as I mentioned. And this new branch of deuteronomics is phenomenal because it's filling in missing pieces. There's things that they don't understand in biochemistry, and this deuterium problem answers a lot of those missing puzzle pieces. It fills them in. So it's a very exciting time.
And I really, applaud you and what you're doing, because, you're passionate about this and you see that this is an issue, and you're wanting to work on this to help people to have, really good, healthy water. And you're
on the inside. Yeah, I want the people to have healthy metabolic water. That's right. And I want people to have lower deuterium so they feel as good as I do. And they should know about what healthy water, what makes water healthy and what makes water not healthy. That should have been taught to us in kindergarten, considering we're water beings, but that wasn't. And then it wasn't taught in first grade, and it was not taught in 12th grade. And then it turns out it wasn't taught in college, your graduate program, or your medical school. It just wasn't taught. And if it was glossed over very quickly. So I'm waving the flag to give this attention. Say, hey guys, this is something that I'm interested in, because I want to age slower. I don't like the idea of not being able to do things in my 50s and 60s that I can do in my 20s. That doesn't appeal to me. The aging process, I'm not interested in it. So I don't believe in it. I'll challenge it. I'll fight it. And there's an easy way to do it now.
Yeah, because I saw an Instagram video with Simon Sinek and this other guy today, and they was talking about the aging process, and they're saying that there's like scientific research kind of in it, that you can be, say, 50, but then have the body or like the insides and the health of someone who's like much younger. And like, I think what you're saying, like based on the water we drink is going to have an effect on that, really drastically. But also,
Massive.
yeah, and also, with your company and what it does. So just, you know, how does say somebody wants to have your product, how is it bottled? Is it in like a supplement form? How does that kind of work, and how do you kind of get it out there to businesses or people?
We have a website, drinklightwater.com. We sell deuterium depleted water in glass and plastic from half liter to 2 liter sizes, and people usually either drink it straight or dilute it. Our water is super deuterium depleted, so it's 10 ppm, and you're trying to get down by 20%. So you can dilute it with your regular water, or you can just drink a half a liter to a liter of it a day. And at the end of the day, if the water that you replaced into your body has less deuterium than the water that you expelled, then your body will lower in deuterium slowly. This is a gradual process, about a half a point part per million per day, to about up to 1 ppm per day. So it's going to take 45 to 90 or more days to get down to that level that you want to maintain at, which is in the 120 part per million range or below. So people buy our water off our website, drinklightwater.com. It's only available direct because it's already expensive. So we wanted to cut out as many middlemen as possible in a retail wholesale scenario. So you can buy it from us direct. Unfortunately, it's not available in the UK right now. We don't have a distributor there. We do have some customers there. They pay a lot of money to ship it, but they're committed to this lifestyle because it works. If you can afford it, like I always joke that our customers are people that can afford to drink it and people that can't afford not to drink it. Because if you're dealing with some health crisis or condition or disease, it's only going to benefit you to have lower deuterium in your body, because you'll have more energy to turn on that self-healing ability that is innate to us.
Nice.
So now people might be asking, well, this is frustrating. I've just listened to this podcast and I'm in the UK. I can't get in now. I want it. And I can't get any of your water. So the first thing I say to that is be patient. Second thing I say to that is there's other things you can do to lower the deuterium in your body. You can adopt a ketogenic or keto adapted lifestyle or diet. You can essentially eat a lot less carbs, because a ketogenic diet is a deuterium depletion strategy. Fats have less deuterium than carbs. So, and if you eat less, you'll get less deuterium in your body. So intermittent fasting, ketogenic diet, sun exposure, all these things help to maintain the proper balance in the mitochondria. Our bodies, they work to filter some of this deuterium out. But like I said, we just get overrun very quickly because it's a cumulative effect. It's like getting slapped in the face constantly. Eventually you're like, I'm out, I'm done. So yeah, this is the thing. You can lower the burden of deuterium in your body, not just by drinking deuterium depleted water. You could do it through eating high fat foods or stay in ketosis longer. When you burn a kilo of fat, that translates to about a liter of metabolic water in your body. So it only benefits us to switch our metabolism from glucose to ketones. And some people it's easy, some people it's not. But that's just our biology. We produce 4 times more energy from fat than we do from sugar, and then sugar has more deuterium than fat. And we actually consume a lot more food than we need. So that's another thing that people can do is to now if you do lower, that's not going to lower deuterium that much, but it'll be significant enough for you to have some long-term benefit just through lifestyle intervention, just through changing your diet. There's hope.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate you sharing that, and giving advice on people who might not be able to afford it or be able to get it yet in the UK or other parts of Europe. And when it's out, I'm happy to promote it, put it out there, and I wish you, continued success with your product and your research and
Thank you. Thank you.
everything that you're doing because I think you're welcome, and I think it's also important, that if you feel strongly about something and you discover something to follow that through, regardless of what other people might think or the masses and things like that. And I think you're doing great work, and I really appreciate you talking about it because I think it's really something important that people should look into and do a bit of research about because there's so much kind of going on behind the scenes. It's not just the water that we see. There's so many other things going on behind that, and I really appreciate you explaining that. And
I appreciate. Thank you.
you're welcome. And
Yeah.
just to like a question, so what um what advice would you say to people who want to kind of find their way in life? Any advice on patience? Because I think like you've been very patient in this business, and things take time, and there's a process.
Patience doesn't hurt. It's maybe a little uncomfortable, but it doesn't. It doesn't hurt. So, um, yeah. So, I mean, we need patience for everything. You don't. You just have to understand that nothing is instant. Everything takes time. Just like the sun doesn't appear in the
Mm.
in the midday sky right away. It takes time. Everything is cyclical.
Mm.
So if you look at do you know the definition of luck?
No, no.
Um, it's the confluence. It's the confluence. It's where preparedness meets opportunity. So just be prepared. Everything else will come. But as long as you're prepared, then the opportunity will arise. And we live in a temporal universe, so it takes time. So whether patience is only a benefit to us.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah,
It's a little bit of humble advice, I guess.
yeah. No, I appreciate it. I think we live in a society where people like a lot of patience they want it now, and things do take time, but it's worth it in the end if you keep going at it. But
Well, when you take matters of health, when you're talking in terms of health, it takes a long time to hurt somebody for them to get ill. So if you want to go the other way, it's going to take equal amount of time to get well. It's not like, and we want the quick Band-Aid, right? If we want to ignore the things that we did for years, decades, that ultimately led to some kind of state that we're in, we want to take a pill or a supplement and then instantly recover from that. It doesn't work that way. Everything is gradual. So if it took decades to do something, it'll take decades to undo. It's not nothing is, life isn't fair.
yeah, no, definitely. No, I think that's really true, isn't it? People want to get in shape or they want to do something or look after themselves. But there's that kind of reverse process as well, and that's going to take time. It's that kind of works either way.
Look,
Um,
I've got this T-shirt. It says anti-gravity is a human right, because I believe sometime in the future we will achieve that. I think just like we achieved airplanes and electricity and a light bulb and the things that we do now with our little cell phones and ability to communicate by Zoom. I mean, we've achieved so many things, and eventually we'll achieve this anti-gravity, because what it symbolizes is an achievement in superconductivity. And I believe that's our birthright. What superconductivity is essentially is immortality, because there's no decay of spin, there's no friction. So everything in our physical reality has friction in it, right? Everything eventually, if you spin something, eventually it slows down and stops. And I think our ultimate birthright in the future, as we evolve, is to crack this final piece of superconductivity, of room temperature superconductivity, and activate that within us. I think this is what we all have in store for us as a species with a superior intellect. Will eventually arrive at this. And so, it's a process. Enjoy the journey that we were on.
yeah, no,
We may not
definitely.
be alive to see it. We may not witness it, but it's coming. It's coming. Sure enough, it's coming, as people in the 19th century knew that eventually there would be a light bulb, and it happened. So we'll have we will achieve these things that are only science fiction to us now, and I mean, look, this discovery of deuterium depletion, I so much believe in the science of this, because it just, you can't disprove it, that I'm willing to talk to you, talk to a million other people, and tell them that this is not going away. This is knowledge that you, whether you embrace it now or embrace it later, whether you do something or don't do something about it, you should know about it. You should know that there is a biological contaminant that if you reduce it, it's going to improve your life.
No, I think it's great, like the information that you have shared. And, I truly believe that, like what you said, even if it's not in our lifetime, it will happen. And it was something that will take effect. And like you said, it's things that take time, but I'm really, grateful that you've been able to go into detail about this, because I think it's really, really important and people, need to know about it.
Well,
And
it's benefited me tremendously. That's so I love sharing this, because the benefit that I've had health wise is just, I don't think anything else could have got me there. It's just that my deuterium level is around 100 parts per million, and most everybody else's, if they don't practice this lifestyle or drinking deuterium depleted water, is 150 parts per million. The difference in metabolic energy is night and day.
yeah, it's a big difference, isn't it? And I think, people can
It's massive.
people can kind of, look on your website and then look into it more. And like, do you have like social media? Is any tags that you have or anything?
Yeah,
Anywhere else?
it's drink light water on Instagram, Lightwater Galactic on Twitter, because this is something that's going to be really important for space travel. In fact, anyway, it's a whole other topic. But this has so many applications. Deuterium depletion or deuterium depleted water has so many applications, especially for people when they start traveling outside the safety of Earth. You get bombarded by an enormous amount of radiation. If you go to Mars, you make water there. It's going to have 7 times more deuterium. So our desire to evolve into a class 1 civilization where we settle other planets is intimately tied with deuterium depletion. And I'm just trying to inform people.
Yeah, no, I love it. And I really appreciate, you being on the podcast and, talking about, your business, Light Water, and the benefits of, water on people's health. And I wish you continued success in what you're doing.
Thank you so much. And likewise to you too.
Oh, thank you. You're welcome. Take care.